and get started. I'll call the meeting of the Metropolitan Agency Planning Board into session. I will state that this meeting is being conducted in compliance with Nebraska statutes of the Open Meeting Act. For reference, the Open Meeting Act is also posted on the wall of the boardroom. First item on the agenda is roll call. Liz, do you want to take care of that?
Supervisor Scott Bell.
Here.
Commissioner Roger Garcia.
Here.
Mayor Rusty Hike. Mayor Doug Hindig.
Here.
Commissioner David Klug.
Here.
Councilmember Don Rowe. Mayor Gene Stothart. Mayor Matt Walsh. Mayor Angie Lundquist. Yes, sir.
Only because I'm thinking of it right now, was MAPA aware that Mayor Hike's mother passed away?
We were, yeah, we sent a letter.
Okay.
I was gonna mention that.
Okay. Oh.
That's okay.
I jumped to it. Agenda item, are we gonna have to separate you out?
No, we don't have. I was just double checking, we don't have use on our view signs.
Oh, you guys. Well, we can get that taken care of.
We already did.
Did ya? Okay. All right, I'll move on with agenda item B, which is just, can I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
You guys are always
So,
trying to
Sarah, roll with that.
Second. All right, who did the?
Liz, you want to take it up, please?
Bell.
Aye.
Garcia.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes,
Lundquist. Yes. Hindig.
Yes.
it was on,
It was on?
it was on. Thought it was maybe a decoy.
Is it unplugged under the desk there?
Well, that could be.
Wonder.
Yep, sure is. This one is. This one.
That might be.
I fell out of there.
You guys.
There you
Oh, let's go.
go. All right, there we go.
Huh. Wow.
Troubleshoot.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item C is, are you get a motion to approve the board minutes from the March 27th meeting?
Also, second include.
Who did the first?
I did.
Okay.
If there's no questions, Liz?
Bell.
Aye.
Garcia.
Yes.
Klug.
Abstain.
Walsh.
Yes.
Lundquist. Yes. Hindig.
Yes. Agenda item D is our agency reports. We can start with Mike.
Yeah, and so just one brief staffing update to begin. We've got our GIS coordinator, Josh Corrigan, who's a friendly face here at MAPA, but he joined us again here after about a year with the Army Corps of Engineers. So I don't know, Josh, if you want to reintroduce yourself, you're welcome to. But
Sure, yeah, Josh Corrigan. So I worked here for 10 years before going to the Corps. Happy to be back. Love the organization, you know, so it was an easy decision for me to come back, but looking forward to the type of projects to work on and yeah, moving forward.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. What, the Corps here in town then?
Yep. Yep, work for the Omaha district.
he stayed in the neighborhood, just up the street.
They're some of our best friends. It's flooding.
Yes. Yeah.
We're about to try to get
We
started.
want to go to the next slide, Laura.
Cold. Get permission to go over there to rock, whatever the town is. Got Omaha.
So I put a packet in your handout here, or a handout in your packet rather. There's a few conversations going on at the federal level, some requests for information, some requests for input on processes. I'm just going to touch on these briefly, but I did give you a packet to take these back to your teams if you'd like to. The first is on CDBG and home. So these are HUD programs, and Congressman Flood is the chair of the Housing and Insurance Subcommittee this year, and he and his counterpart, Emmanuel Cleaver, who is the ranking member of that same committee, are looking for feedback on these two programs. You know, there's a lot of things in there about the regulatory burden of these programs, you know, eligible uses, innovative uses of them. And so it's really good, I think, just for local practitioners, you know, from communities large and small that are impacted by CDBG and home funds to weigh in on this. I talked a little bit here at the bottom just about MAPA's priorities, the things that we've communicated to Congress just about maintaining these funding levels and then just flexibility on those consolidated plans and regulatory requirements. Laura, if you want to, does this actually work? Oh, look at that. The second one here is from the Surface Transportation Reauthorization. And so this is the infrastructure bill So this is set to expire on September 30th. Again, we'll talk a little bit about this in the budget time, but the transportation funding is MAPA's largest source of funding. And reauthorization is really kind of starting on the House side. The Senate is doing a little bit too. But when we go out to Washington, D.C. and talk to Congress, we talk a lot about the importance of these programs, the flexibility that we have with those programs. Have some of the things that we've highlighted here just through MAPA on local match requirements and local decision-making, kind of the body here that we have with our TTAC and our board about how we prioritize funds and coordinate with our state and federal partners. And then really just shifting where we can from sort of discretionary programs where we have to compete nationally to more formula programs that are more predictable for our members. And so that input is actually due next week. And then finally, DOT is looking at some of the regulatory burdens of projects, things like permitting, things like other things that impact infrastructure investments. And so again, this is just a request for information. The link there takes you to kind of a larger request form, and this one is due on May 5th back. But really, I would say just a lot of sort of consistent kind of inquiries from our federal partners. But if you have team members, folks within your organizations that might be interested in weighing in, we've been presenting these to our committees as well, just to get as much input from the region as we can. I was out in Denver earlier this month at what is our 10-state conference. So EDA, the Economic Development Administration, our regional office is out in Denver. And so NATO, one of our national associations, hosts conferences with all the states that are members of that EDA region. And so it was 10 states out there. There were quite a few folks from Omaha, actually. We had Unimed was out there, Unitech talking about some of their entrepreneurship stuff and workforce development projects. Just a great way of connecting with our peer organizations, learning from federal officials about changes that are coming and what we can expect on some of the funding side of things for us. And I think just a great opportunity to continue that partnership with our regional and federal partners. I presented at a conference on Monday. You may have seen a little bit of a news clip on this just about the transportation conference. So this was actually hosted by several human service agencies, really talking about transit and workforce and how all these things kind of play together for the region and the state as a whole. And so provided a presentation just about transportation decision-making, kind of the long-range plan, what we do as an MPO, and then was on a panel with transit providers from across the state, including SWITA from Southwest Iowa, who talked a little bit about their workforce programs as well. Community assistance report. So just the highlights here, we've done some work in Eagle doing their first strategic plan in Alvo, kind of building on the streetscape project, the CDBG funding we've talked to you guys about previously, doing potentially a community-wide nuisance abatement survey. This is something that we've done in some Washington County communities in the past. Did train the trainer, and Grant, I'm going to warn you, you missed a pun here with train the trainer. Train the trainer. Yeah, and train the trainer and trainer. We'll get it next time. But just capacity building, really working on some of the philanthropically led initiatives in Southwest Iowa. The Lakin Foundation has set up these community funds, and Trainer is really trying to work through some of that process about how they prioritize those efforts, and MAPA is playing a role in that. And then in Underwood, again, kind of a community survey development in support of a potential comprehensive plan. A number of other things just on the federal side. We've got letters of support going out to projects, and if you're participating or pursuing community project funding on the House side or congressionally directed spending on the Senate side, let us know. We're happy to provide a letter of support for your project. And then really working alongside some regional partners. Cass County Economic Development is working with the city of Elmwood to do a downtown plan in coordination with UNL Extension. And then the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce, grants team is working really closely with them on a number of EDA applications in support of their strategic plan. One final thing, we've been talking a lot about some of the work that we've been doing around the development of our SEDS and partnering with community-based organizations. And one of the programs is called LEAP. It's actually a 5-day workshop out in Cleveland. And Grant will be traveling with some other partners from the chamber, the city, and community-based organizations here in Omaha. We were selected competitively out of that. So kind of continuing to build that work in partnership with our members. And so then moving through just kind of MAPA in the news, some other items. So continued conversation about the Dodge Riverside Golf Course in Council Bluffs. MAPA supported some of the planning around the First Avenue corridor and is currently working with the city of Council Bluffs and other partners on the evaluation of a new multimodal bridge, kind of connecting downtown Omaha to the west end of Council Bluffs. And so lots of coverage of that and the conversations going on at City Council. We had the Potawatomi County Board heard updates on the Minden recovery efforts and the CDBG grant that MAPA helped support on the application side and is administering as well, which is moving through some of the regulatory approvals on that side of things. And then we had some work continuing on the North 30th Street corridor. MAPA, Court and I went to a presentation at the North Omaha Commercial Club on North 30th Street, talking about the Highway 75 corridor and talking to them a little bit about this. We used this Iowa DOT road diet video because we just think it's a great way of talking about these 4 to 3 lane conversions. They've done a great job of doing that across the state, and it's been really powerful to talk about highway facilities and how and why they're 4 lanes and what safety benefits you get out of 3 lanes. So continuing conversation there. I'd like to invite you all to our next Council of Officials meeting as well on June 18th. So we'll be having Dave Roth talk a little bit about the Airport Authority and some of the work that's happening there with the terminal modernization. So if you remember, maybe 5 years ago now, we had Dave provide a similar presentation when they were just talking about their strategic plan and kind of their master plan for the airport. And since then, they have secured a tremendous amount of funding to actually deliver on that. And so they're pretty well into that process. We'll be holding this down at the venues at the Granary to get out of the CWS bubble of North Downtown. And there will be lunch provided. And so you can register. There's a link there, but you'll probably be getting an email if you haven't already.
I don't think we.
I just got one today.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I
this
think,
morning.
yeah, I think it would have gone out either today or yesterday.
I'll forward it over to her. Make sure she gets it.
Excellent. And then finally, we are hiring a communications and outreach intern. So if you know anybody who's interested in working at MAPA, who goes to college in the region or has recently graduated, connect us with them. I think we're always looking for talented interns to help support our work. So let us know if you. Generally it's 20 to 25 hours. I mean, it's part-time. In the summer, sometimes they get closer to 40 hours, but we usually peg them at, a part-time position throughout the year. Yeah. Okay, and that's it. Any questions?
All right, at this time, I'll just mention that if anyone in the audience wishes to address the agency, we'll be given the opportunity. Liz, did we have any requests?
No.
I'll move on to agenda item F, and I will take a motion to approve the entire consent agenda unless board members wish to remove one of the items. So move, please. Second, Bill. Is there any further discussion or questions? Liz?
Bell.
Aye.
Garcia.
Yes.
Blue.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Winquist. Yes. Kennedy.
Yes. Under agenda item G, old business, item number 1 is resolution 2025-17. TIP program amendment. Court?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Pretty straightforward amendment. There's 3 changes that we're making to the 2025 TIP. 2 of them are City of Omaha projects. One of them is a previously awarded Heartland 2050 mini grant project. They wanted to do a study on Beltline Trail, basically Field Club Trail, Beltline Trail connection study. It took the city a little while to get everything put together for it, and they wanted to do it now, so we're moving it back into the TIP. The City of Omaha received a discretionary grant from FTA for basically it's a study for potential streetcar extension. And the amount of funds that we had programmed in the TIP did not actually match the award. They got more than what they initially told us. FTA kind of saw it and pointed it out, and so we're adding the total amount in. And then Iowa DOT reached out to us and said they want to move one of their I-29 projects forward. So they were initially going to do some work on I-29 in 2028 and moving it forward to 2025. So we're moving that into the first year TIP.
North of town or south?
This would be north. So this would be south of County Road L19, basically to south of 880.
Okay.
It's coming with a favorable recommendation from TTAC, and we're asking for approval of this amendment.
Any questions for court? If there's no further discussion, Liz?
Motion to approve.
I have.
Was that you, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
Bell.
Aye.
Garcia,
Yes.
Clute,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Winquest. Yes. Kennedy.
Yes. Item number 2 is the contract amendment, Grant, if you want to address or anything to add to this?
Sure, so this is part of the 5210 Helping Choices Count program. We're asking to amend some agreement with Bluff School Foundation to increase the amount that they were allocated this year. This is a 3-year program, so in the first year, 2024, we had 3 projects. We ended up not using some of the money, $5,596, just because the projects came in under budget. We closed out that year, just assumed that the state would reallocate or repurpose those funds, but they reached out to us and asked if we could use that money for 2025. We've already entered into agreements with subrecipients for 2025, but one of the projects that involves the installation of field turf at Edison Elementary. They have a need for it. They still had a funding gap to get that project underway. So we're proposing to utilize the 2024 money that was left over at $5,590.06 to the 5210 agreement we have with the Council Bluffs School Foundation.
Is that on Edison, actually on Edison's property there?
Yeah, it is.
Was there much room to
No,
have green space?
no. No, it's adjacent to, there's a playground, yeah. It's not a very big area.
Yeah, no.
Any further questions for Grant? If not, could I have a motion to approve? Second.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then who's second? Okay.
And if there's no further discussion, Liz?
Bill.
Aye.
Garcia,
Yes.
Clute,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Winquest. Yes. Kennedy.
Yes. Under new business, new contracts, I'll take one vote on these unless the agency wishes to remove one. The first one is a professional service agreement with SRF Consulting. Carlos?
Yeah, good afternoon, Carlos, Transportation Data Manager. This contract is for the federal award for Safe Streets and Roads for Safe Streets for All. Program from the US DOT. This program is looking at doing additional comprehensive safety action plans for 7 rural communities. This is a joint application between RPA 18 and RPA 13. We combined our efforts to look and investigate additional safety projects within the communities, and let me get this right, of Atlantic, Florinda, Glenwood, Harlan, Missouri Valley, Red Oak, and Shenandoah. These were communities that were originally left out from Iowa, the 99 county application from Iowa. So this is kind of filling that gap where a gap existed. We solicited an RFQ, had 3 firms bid. Of the 3, SRF/Snyder was selected, and this is just a professional services contract to do that work. We anticipated to take about 16 months, and it's for a total of $114,913.18. Any questions?
The whole question I have is, have you gotten out that far before?
So we cover, so for RPA 18, we cover the 4 counties in western Iowa. So we cover Harrison, Potawatomi Mills, and then Shelby County. And so part of this is with, as Carlos alluded to, is partnership between RPA 18, which we serve, and RPA 13, which SWIPCO serves. So we,
I wondered if.
Yes. yeah, and so we partnered with them on the application. They're going to be handling the outreach on RPA 13, and we're coordinating the RPA 8.
Okay.
Yep.
Really was,
Yeah, it just made it easier.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions for Carlos? If not, if there's no further discussion on that item, the first court's got the next two. The first is Black Hills Works, and the second is Newcastle Incorporated.
Yep.
Those court?
Yeah, so the 5310 program is funding for paratransit agencies and other service providers in the area to provide basically public transportation where it's not usually feasible to provide that service, and it's for elderly and people with disabilities. So these are two fairly long-standing recipients of 5310 funds. Where it's just kind of every time we do an agreement, they spend the funding and then we set up a new agreement for them. The Newcastle one, I do want to note that it's not to exceed because they didn't end up using all of the funding in their previous agreement, so we're going to roll that amount into the new agreement. They just haven't we haven't final invoice on that, so we're not 100% sure exactly what the dollar amount's going to be, so that's why it's a not to exceed. But yeah, it's pretty standard 5310 recipient agreements to help them out with operating costs.
And they cover Nebraska.
These two agencies are, well, Black Hills Works is a little bit mixed. But yes, these would both be primarily Nebraska serving agencies, but yeah, Black Hills.
Same sweater.
Well, I mean, a little bit. I mean, they serve kind of different areas. I don't know, Court, if you want to talk a little bit about Black Hills Works project versus Newcastle's project, but yes, SWITA does complementary things, I would say.
Yeah, that's quite true. Black Hills is more of so they're like getting disabled people to, like they're a disabled work program. Whereas Newcastle is, it's a retirement home within Omaha. So they're primarily serving their clients, whereas Black Hills is more of a get to the right, helping people get to work kind of situation.
Any other questions for court? If not, could I have a motion to approve both 1A and 1B?
So, second, Bill.
Is there any further discussion? If not, Liz?
Bell.
Aye.
Garcia.
Yes.
Blue.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Lindquist. Yes. Kindig.
Yes. Thank you. Item number H2 is resolution 2015-18, Safe Streets and Roads for All. This is the comprehensive safety action plan. Jim?
Yeah, good afternoon. Excited to bring to you today the comprehensive safety action plan for approval and give you a quick update on some of our work over the last couple of months. We presented to the safety committee and TTAC last week. This is our sixth formal presentation of the plan. Again, a presentation of the comprehensive safety action plan. They focused on a couple of other areas, and I just wanted to give you some highlights. They gave an overview of outreach that was conducted throughout the study itself. We had over 50 hours of outreach in a lot of forms for public meetings, open house style, along with the digital online version. We spent a lot of time talking to focus groups, so we had 8 of those meetings. We're still in the process of finishing out 20 one-on-one meetings, and those are with jurisdiction planning and public works staff on grant development, and 24 jurisdiction meetings as well. We're in the process right now of working with each individual jurisdiction to receive back updates to and eventually sign memorandums of understanding, just basically agreeing to the principles of the plan and accepting it, and that really will enable each individual jurisdiction to use that plan for future funding opportunities. So in a nutshell, we looked at, and just a quick overview, we developed a high priority network that said, where do we see crashes occurring that result in fatal and serious injuries? Where could we, based upon our risk analysis, and looked at input from the community. Subsequent to that, the WSP team brought in and recommended a little over 1,000 projects. And so what we narrowed that down to make it really simpler for communities to look at a community profile. These are about 120 projects looking over 20 years, and just looking to work at those. We could save over 100 or just under 100 lives, prevent just under 500 serious injuries from crashes, And, you know, over 5,000, which is kind of a staggering number, injuries otherwise prevented. And so each of your public works and planning staff will be seeing those in community form. We'll work with them. Some are working with us directly already through the grant planning process. So the WSP team will be helping develop grant opportunities, but we're now in the stage where we're ready to start helping and really getting projects realized. Along with that comes 60 recommendations. Again, that's quite a laundry list when you look at it in the plan. This profile, and I'll show you an example on the next slide, really narrows it down and it looks at context for each community and gives some what I think are good examples and kind of walks through a path to get there. Some of them are region-wide, things like the primary seatbelt law in Nebraska, automated red light enforcement, and some others that are really kind of statewide and legislative decisions that could have really a big impact on safety in our region. So this is an example of that community profile. We talked about this a while ago. The first round of the notice of funding opportunity said Safe Streets is for local organizations to solve safety problems on local roads. Since then, they've changed that. There is an opportunity to work in coordination with the state departments of transportation and use this funding. And not unexpectedly, we do see a good portion of our state highway network in both Iowa and Nebraska reflected and projects. So we're happy to work with the departments of transportation and jurisdictions as well. And really, again, taking some highlights on what the traffic outcome data told us to help each community talk with their members and prioritize projects. And then in the bottom right, again, is a list of projects that are narrowed down. They have a good benefit cost ratio and, you know, provides a reasonable list to look at and to try to attack, especially this first year of our plan execution. Okay, so again, just an example of that memorandum of understanding, showing commitment to the safe system approach. We've talked about that layered approach. We're not going to fix everything with just one approach. We can work on those things together and not setting any kind of particular requirement for the jurisdiction, but just providing recommendations on approaches they can take to improve safety. Finally, over the next couple weeks, we'll be finishing those one-on-one meetings. We're helping the city of Omaha develop an implementation grant through the Safe Streets program. We're looking to work with a couple of communities to do demonstration grants. So just what could a project look like without actually going in and tearing up pavement and pouring new concrete. And then we're also working with some communities to take advantage of Nebraska and Iowa Highway Safety Improvement Program funds as well. The grant application closes for Safe Streets here in June. It's they have a one-time application. We're happy to help any organization, any jurisdiction that would want to. And we do have a couple that are interested. You know, we'll find out what that capacity limit is for us, but they are pretty easy applications to write. 2 pages for a plan, 12 pages for an implementation grant for narrative.
But is there a dollar upper limit, dollar amounts on what's that?
So they just recently changed that there's a legislative requirement for how much needs to be held back for planning. They're going to hold back 300 million for that, and the remaining about 700 million is going to go towards projects. They want to award between 40 to 70 projects, so that comes out anywhere from a good number is between 5 to 10 million. They haven't set a specific count.
But no small stuff.
Yeah, they do want them to be bundles of smaller projects that cover a region. Yeah,
The communities can.
yeah, that would be the goal, is to represent as many communities as possible.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yep, no problem. Cross jurisdiction in particular are looked to be, you know, competitive projects.
So, the wild card in that, those communities is the railroad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting to look back. There have been applications previously that were awarded that.
Yeah.
So I would say this isn't the only safety grant opportunity in town at the federal level and even at the state level. So there may be some opportunities in other places. June 26th is a really short window to come up with a competitive no-throw involving the railroad. But but
Yeah.
I wouldn't say.
Oh, no, you can't. You're not gonna touch it.
Okay,
You move fast somewhere.
Yeah.
On the tracks.
on the tracks. So, I think, I wanna to let you know, there have been a lot of really committed people working on this project day to day. Some of those people that have given hours of their time, hours of their days, lost friends even this past week, to traffic crashes. So it's very personal to the people that have worked on it, and we're very excited to present this to you for approval. It did come with a positive recommendation.
Any further questions for Jim? If not,
I would just like to take a moment just to commend Carlos and Jim and Lindsay who have led this effort. I mean, this is, when we applied for this grant, I mean, this has exceeded, I think, even our expectations, which were high about what we'd be able to accomplish and kind of the path we'd be able to put the region on. And so just kudos all around. I mean, this has just been a tremendous effort. This was a program really tailor-made for what we hoped to do. And now seeing this opportunity with the actual implementation grants and the continued planning and demonstration grants, we have so much support that it's pretty staggering. And so we're excited to continue working with our partners.
Make a motion from.
second. Is there any further discussion? Liz?
Belt.
Aye.
Garcia.
Yes.
Clute.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Winifred. Yes. Handler.
Yes. Agenda item number H3 is the draft of our 2026 budget. Mike?
Sure. So I've got a slide deck here to simplify some of the presentation of this. In your packet, you have the entirety of our kind of budget tables, the funds budget, the line item budget and the program budget. I'm going to touch on the funds budget, and then I'm going to spend most of the time on the line item budget because most of this stuff is duplicated throughout, and you'll see that hopefully as we get through this. There we go. So just to start out, MAPA's budget schedule. So we start back in kind of the December timeframe with our community survey. In January, we do our dues request, which is kind of setting our dues amount for the year. And then really the remaining part of the budget schedule is putting the pieces together for the state and federal funding, what contracts we anticipate. And what you have before you today is really a preliminary look at that. This is kind of our best guess at present. We will come back to you in May with our final budget and work program, and ultimately those will be passed on to our state and federal partners. We do a draft work program, you may recall, back in March. That is due to our state and federal partners on the transportation side. You'll see most of that reflected here. Most of it's just kind of carried forward. And so we kind of start really wide and focus in here to May. And so this is really a great opportunity. If you have feedback on our programs or priorities, it's a good time to kind of catch us in the middle and help direct us in the right way. So the dues request again back in January and our best anticipated activities. And this is really for our budget that starts on July 1 and goes through June 30th of 2026. So just a really high level overview, revenues are 8.4 million, expenses are 8.4 million. Each year we have a small portion of our total budget that's kind of carried forward from fiscal year to fiscal year, largely state and federal dollars or state and local dollars rather, non-federal dollars that just aren't implemented at that time. They may be matched that we collected for a project or are restricted for some specific activity. For the upcoming year, we anticipate about $5.2 million in state and federal revenue. That's subject to change if we receive a notice on some of our pending awards. Our budget also includes about $700,000 of in-kind revenues. These are things that are paid paid by our local partners mostly, and where we may reimburse 80% of a particular activity, but we're able to count that match as part of our program. $785,000 of local government revenues. Those are largely match contributions that are contributed to projects to match federal funding or are part of other projects that flow through MAPA. We have service charges. Those are things like the non-participating part of our NIROC aerial photography project. So that is kind of additional things that are paid by MAPA, but that we don't use as match for our federal transportation activities. And then about $446,000 of fund adjustments and transfers, including some of those things that allow us to carry funding forward between years. Expenses are 8.4 million, about $3.1 million of labor expenses, $473,000 of non-labor expenses. And a largest portion of our budget is really those procurements and subawards, the funding flowing through MAPA to projects, to contractors, to subrecipients for specified activities. And then again, about another 300,000 of fund adjustments and transfers. So I'm going to walk you through the line item budget, which starts on page 4 of your packet, if you want to follow along on paper. So looking kind of at the top here, I won't touch on the revenues because that really just kind of gets carried forward, but and I've touched on it before, but going to the actual expenses side of things, our labor expenses are relatively flat from the FY25 budgeted level. We had about $270,000 of vacancy savings in FY25. That was one position that was unfilled and a couple of positions that we had attrition and didn't fill it. The funding or the labor expenses remain pretty much flat because we have pulled back on one COVID area position. And so that's eliminated as part of this budget. But that's really pending additional funding from our federal partners. That's what made that position possible in the past.
You're on page 5.
Page 5. Yep.
So, page.
Yeah.
You go back to page 4 for a second.
Sure.
So, that,
Yeah.
208,000 for 2024.
Yep, I can touch, have a slide on that, but so that is when we presented our final financial statements for the audit of FY24, we talked about how the pending contract revenue from City of Pacific Junction, how we weren't able to represent that as an outstanding debt. We had to collect that as a bad debt because it's been outstanding for so long. After we had done that though in FY25, kind of after we closed FY24, we have received $70,000 of that. The grants remain open. We anticipate that we'll receive at least a portion of it. But as it is reflected here on FY24, yes, it is represented as a bad debt. That's for the purposes of the audit.
Okay.
But yeah. We are not part of the hamburger deal. Nope. Nope. Yeah, plenty of bad news to go around.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And so back to page 5. You're just jumping my slide deck here, but that is your privilege. So
I didn't know.
no, you didn't miss it. You didn't miss it. So back to page 5, kind of on these non-labor expenses, that $473,000 number. You'll note that between FY25 and FY26, it's a large decrease, primarily in those office expenses. That is for the implementation costs related to our new ERP, Oracle NetSuite. And this year, kind of the current year, we're really going through that process with those consultants of building the new financial systems that we'll have for 5 to 10 years here. And so that kind of board-approved consultant cost is really what's driving the difference between FY25 being so high and FY26 being lower. Everything else is relatively stable and flat, which is slight increases due to small cost increases. The largest portion of our budget here is this procurements and subawards. That's about $4.5 million. That includes everything that was in our UPWP from the past, in addition to other contracted services, including our NIROC aerial photography project. And this kind of transfers section here includes both the transfer to our officials fund, which is that funds really primarily used for travel for our board and council of officials members, to things like the National Association of Regional Officials or Regional Councils Conference, rather. And we just kind of always maintain that at $15,000 so that there's funds available for all of that. The transfers from cash reserves that you see in FY25 in that yellow column, that was for that ERP, kind of that one-time transfer out, and you'll see that that does not carry forward into FY26 as those funds have already been transferred out. And then really that total bottom line number here for the expenses side of things is that $8.4 million number, which matches the revenue that I highlighted earlier on. And then Supervisor Belt noted this, but that $208,000, we kind of show FY24 actual, our kind of best guesstimate on the FY25 budget. We're going to give you a refined kind of final wrap up of that next month with our new budget. And then the blue, kind of the recommended budget for FY26. The FY24 budget does reflect that $208,000 reflected as a bad debt for FY24. And since then, since we accounted for that, we have received $70,000 in reimbursements on the CDBG side of things. The outstanding reimbursements are still on the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and that grant remains open. And we anticipate working closely with the state and the local to receive those funds. And then NIROC aerial photography project, you see kind of that number, the services going out. Our financial statements always look a little bit strange because we have to account for the costs of those flights, the payments that MAPA makes on behalf of our members on those contracts. But we do have members that are on different payment plans, kind of paying those off either kind of just after a fiscal year or split over 2 fiscal years. And so those kind of payment plans stretch out some of that and show revenues in one year and expenses in other years. So this current year of FY25, we have higher expenses and we have revenues coming in next year without those expenses. And so it makes our books look a little bit strange, but essentially most of that's based on the agreements that we have with those locals about paying off those aerial photography flights over a set number of years. And so with that, then the wrap up here is the program budget. This is a restatement of everything we've talked about before. This is how our audited financial statements are presented to you at the end of each year. And again, kind of that $3.1 million number for FY26 on personnel expenses, non-personnel expenses at that $473,000 number, and then contracts and pass-throughs just over $4.5 million for a total agency budget of $8.1 million. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. Otherwise, with your approval today, we'll present this as our preliminary budget and we'll continue to refine this through next month.
So is there any possibility, I guess, let's say, the tariffs affecting those non-personnel expenses?
Probably not. I mean, I think the only thing that would maybe fall into that is some office furniture, office furnishings that we're looking to do. It's the only thing I can think of that might be impacted by tariffs. Everything else we do is mostly services, software as a service, professional services. I would say probably the larger impact is probably more on the revenue side of things and changes in those programs, particularly as we get through this continuing resolution and have new funding targets for next year. I would think that would be a bigger maybe risk than tariffs. We don't buy anything of substance. We don't buy a lot of steel as a planning agency, so.
But there are people that you contract with.
Well, yes, the members, so on the tip side of things, kind of the stuff that court talks about where we're awarding money to projects, we've continued to see costs escalate on those projects, yeah. But those aren't reflected here in this budget. Yeah. Yep.
Any questions for Mike?
Motion to approve. Well, thanks.
Any further discussion? Liz?
Bell. Garcia.
Yes.
Luke.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Winquist. Yes. And Dave.
Yes. No additional business. With that, the last thing is.
We do have a discussion item for discussion. Just item I.
Yeah, I didn't want to discuss. Agenda item I. Mike?
Sure. So MAPA's interlocal agreement talks a little bit about MAPA's legal representation, which is pretty vague, but it allows a MAPA member to serve as MAPA's legal counsel, but without compensation. That's kind of the language that's in there. And for the entirety of MAPA's existence, it's been the city of Omaha. And so we have Dave from the city of Omaha who sits in on our meetings now just to kind of help us with the Open Meetings Act issues if there are any, and also does a tremendous amount of contract review for us. And so in December, we met with Matt Kusi, who is the city attorney for Omaha, and talked a little bit about that relationship. We wanted to really formalize it in an MOU just to make sure that we knew what we could go to the city of Omaha for, what we would need to retain outside counsel for. And I think we've started to narrow in on that. Elise and Dave are working on kind of that MOU, which we always take action on in June, kind of saying who's MAPA's legal counsel for the year ahead. And so we'll have a little bit of a different framework there. But what came out of that conversation is that as MAPA's sort of activities have changed, where we're doing things in the MAPA Foundation, which is a nonprofit, we're doing things on kind of the land development and housing side of things where we have property transactions and other things. Those are things really outside of the city of Omaha's ability to assist us with. And so we're going to be putting together an RFP to retain outside counsel for really kind of a swath of things that we don't necessarily anticipate on a regular basis, but should they be needed, we want to have outside counsel available to go through those. And so we'll be harmonizing that with the MOU that was developed with the city of Omaha, just to kind of understand that, but wanted you all to be aware. I've talked with Jacqueline here on the board, who's an attorney, and also Patrick, who serves as the treasurer for finance committee just a little bit about how to approach that and things like that. But we'll keep you in the loop on that. But just if you have any recommendations, anything on that inside, just let me or Christina know.
But the city is providing the free, that what you said?
Yeah, per the interlocal, that language is the strangest thing, but I think it was an idea of able to use it as a member service, but it creates issues with attorney-client privilege. The city of Omaha couldn't represent us if there was litigation. And so it creates a situation where it's useful to have a member kind of to advise us on things that make sense, but on things outside of that, like things in Iowa, for example, it doesn't really make that much sense. And so that's really where we're kind of looking to complement what the city of Omaha is able to provide with those kind of other outside counsel services. So more to come, but didn't want you to be surprised when that came back. Yeah. You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, I will come ahead and item K is actually the adjournment, but before we do that, I know Mike said something, and Jim, you pay respect to your team members and stuff. I've said this a few times in the last couple of days, I'm not sure that you know what makes an elected official really, really smart, really talented, knowledgeable staff. And I just want to kind of repeat and maybe say on behalf of the agency, not just what was highlighted today, but really the work that you guys do on a daily basis and weekly basis, because you really do make our job easier. So I just want to say thank you for all of us on that. Okay, so with that, I call this motion adjourned. Everyone have a great day. We will see you next month.
Thank you.